encouraged me to worship with people who didn't look like me or believe, the same things. He encouraged me to be in communities that of people who didn't look like me or think like me. My father was also a civil rights leader. And my mother didn't, she wanted me to stay a little closer to home, but I got a taste of New York early on. We had one family member who was on soap operas, All My Children, As the World Turns. And so we'd go to visit her, and I would just like, this is real. People can live like this. So I said, I'm going to New York. And sure enough, I applied for the school of my dreams, NYU, New York University, for Tisch School of the Arts, and only 2% of the people get in. And there was no way we could afford it. And my father told me later, he didn't know how to tell me that at the time. That was the only thing, like, oh, everywhere but NYU, please. But I had a dream, and he taught me that, and we went for it, and I got an acting scholarship.
Wow.
And I still didn't have enough money, but we just took out loans, and I was in. I was committed. My family made a huge sacrifice for me to be there. My grandparents, what little money they had, they put in. um and it became clear to me that it might take some time to become a professional actor. So I started auditioning, putting myself out there like the movies. I had the black and white headshot, and I would walk into the office and be like, you don't know me, but I've tried to be an actor in New York. I was literally door knocking agencies, and I'd be curious to see if that works today, 20 years, 30 years later. Um, but something, I didn't have a lot of self-esteem, but something in me like, I knew I was good at this,
Yeah.
and kind of unapologetically so. And within uh 2 months, I had my first agent. Within 2 weeks, I booked my first acting job. And then 2 months later, my best friend at NYU is in the business school, said, oh man, I got this awesome agent now. And I'm like, what do you mean you have an agent? Like, I'm the actor here, hook me up. And he introduced me to this manager. And her name's Renata English, and she lives in Monmouth Beach, New Jersey, and she's still my manager to this day.
Wow.
20 was that 19 2000, so 24 years later.
Wow.
She got me an audition for a Dell commercial. She was like, Ben, this is a big deal. It's national network, which means it's going to pay well. um but it's for kids ages 12 to 17. I was 19 at the time, about to turn 20. She said, so, dress down. And I go there. I'm the only guy there without my mom, because legally I can be.
Yeah.
And there's all shapes and sizes. So I looked around and I was like, oh, I just got to be me. That's going to be the most unique thing here. And sure enough, it was like the story of this kid trying to get what he wanted for Christmas. And I was like, oh, I've been doing that since I was really good at that. I've been an entrepreneur. I think it's starting to show up in my speaking now, but I've been an entrepreneur since I was a kid. Like, if I wanted something, I'd put an ad in the newspaper, I'd sell the things I had, and I'd upgrade to get that thing. And my parents still to this day were like, we didn't teach you that. I don't know where that came from. But I also started a business as a magician when I was 13, because some other kid in my high school did. And I went to magic school, and I learned to be in front of people and practice putting myself out there. I learned branding and marketing. My dad, when we were making business cards back then, we went to Kinko's, we'd cut out a photo of you, and you'd like glue it on a piece of paper. Then you take the font, you'd put it on there, and then you'd try, like, suddenly you have a trifold brochure. This is like how we did it in 1980. Um, and I realized I was learning all these things, of like, my dad was teaching me marketing and branding, and all this led up to, I got the commercial. It was like piece of cake for me. And that Dell commercial became a record breaking commercial in almost every aspect, as far as visibility, as far as the extreme profit growth they had, and that their sales grew 60% that year. 60%. Dell Technologies. They had never had a national spokesperson. The engagement was off the charts. And I was still in college, and I didn't really know what was going on because I wasn't watching TV. So all this to say that, like, I was doing great, and suddenly NYU said, please don't audition we really encourage that you not look for agents till you've graduated so that you can be present here. And I actually found exactly why they said that, because there became the point where I was getting so many auditions that I couldn't show up for school. And it was really like starting to mess with my soul, because the I was there to train the artist, and yet fame and flashiness and money and success were starting to call me. um I mean, my first Dell commercial, well, no, that was later in Long Island. But the like third or fourth one, they flew me to LA, and the first person I met was Hugh Hefner. And one of the second people I met was Jeremy Piven. And then I think I met I can't remember if it was that trip. Britney Spears was out at this club where my hotel was. So I was having these really extreme experiences. And I'll share one more quick story inside of this, and then I'll get to why and where I am today. Um, this gentleman called me, and he ran Leaders magazine, and he wanted to hire the Dell guy to come meet his wife for her 80th birthday at the Rainbow Room, which is like the top, the most. It was like the fanciest restaurant in New York on the top of this hotel. And he said, and he took me to his office. He has private office, and he had this driver with a Rolls Royce, and he interviewed leaders of the world, like I'm sure you'll be doing very soon. You're one of those for me. And he said, listen, I can either pay you $5,000, or I was like, that's amazing, to go to his wife's birthday. Okay, cool. Or I'll take you to Brioni, which is the nicest tuxedo Italian company in arguably the world, definitely New York. They're Italian, and they made the tux for Pierce Brosnan for 007. And he said, and I'll have you a custom made tux for the event. And I talked to my manager about it, and we ended up going for the tuxedo, and I still have it, and it still fits so well. And he also took me to dinner with oh my god, I just lost his name, from The Odd Couple, one of the greatest actors of our time. I'll think it'll come to me in a moment. And he's passed away since now. Well, I have a picture of him right there. Okay, it'll come back to me. And I got to sit at dinner with him, and he said, all right, you got one question, kid. And I said, okay, do I move to New York or LA? And he said, if you want to be an artist, stay in New York. If you want to be a movie star, go to LA. And so I stayed in New York, and it was a very tough decision. And I got really clear though. And also in that moment, it felt like it had already gotten out of control. Like my career was so big, the demand on me was so big. I was having multiple auditions a day, TV appearances, and showing up for school. And then I started to develop PTSD from it. Like I was having it was very surreal to become a public figure at that age. And I didn't know how to cope with reality in that kind of ways. And I started using drugs and alcohol. And then I moved into my first adult apartment, and that ended up being in Ground Zero. Uh, and that was September 11th, was 2 months later.
Wow.
However, right before I moved in that apartment, actually, no, it was the first week I moved in that apartment. I took the landmark forum, the big weekend for personal growth and development in the World Trade Center. That's where their headquarters was. And I had the most profound weekend of my adult life. Mind blowing. And then literally 2 weeks later, the entire headquarters was gone, and the buildings and everything with it. And I had undiagnosed PTSD. My drug and alcohol use really ramped up, and I was self-medicating. I've learned, I have so much compassion for myself now and what I was going through. And it was terrifying, and I couldn't ask for help. I was too sick. Everything was getting worse, and I was making more and more money. And this is often what I find happens to young people in high success positions or celebrities. We see a lot of people come down from these things, and they never get the care they need. And no one has training or tools for how to be famous when that level of um, it's now I say like sensory, like there's just attention all the time. And so finding yourself in that, especially when you don't know who you are, can be really challenging. And so it became like a dark night of the soul for me. It got really, 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 really dark. And then the saving grace, ironically, was I got arrested, and it made it on national television. So mostly up until about 10 years ago, if you would research me, what you'd see is like, dude, you're getting a cell. I
Yeah.
have the I have the cutout from the headline news that says that. Actually, that's that photo there, and that's my mugshot from jail. And uh, that was terrifying. And I got mocked in jail. Fun little note: I was in a kilt, proper Scottish style with no underwear,
Yeah.
and the fact that I was wearing a quote unquote dress, according to the police, saved me from being in a larger cell for a little while, till my friend brought me pants and underwear. Because my girlfriend from Scotland was visiting at the time. God bless her. And I just had like a small bag of cannabis that I got for my friend's birthday. But I believe now that God was taking care of me, and it, like, I was praying for this to stop so I could get well, and it did. It really stopped for a long time. However, I got offered my, what no one knows is I got offered my first lead role in a feature film. I did that. I produced an off-Broadway show that I took the Edinburgh Theater Festival about racism in America. It was called Indian Wants the Bronx, written by Israel Horovitz, and it was an Irish and Jewish kid dealing with a man from India who was visiting, and they were really violent and racist. And it looked at America in a certain neighborhood in a certain time, uh, that we wanted to bring to the festival, to bring to bigger conversation. And so I got really in touch with my art and who I was. And thank God, a few years later, I I feel like angels found me and I got sober. Um, I just started asking for help, louder and louder and louder and louder. And I think my childhood, I had a lot of therapy. Our family was the first generation to get therapy in our family. So I actually had parents that taught me how to ask for help and speak my emotions. And I believe all of that led to me just it I had to surrender. I went from bartending till 5 a.m. to waking up at 5 a.m. and I became a wellness instructor and a yoga teacher, and I fell in love with my wife. We met in a sober environment out dancing, and we both wanted, we started a wellness company together, and then we started a band together, and 10 years later we still have that band, and we travel and we tour, and we work through our marriage in it. So a lot of my self-care today is around doing what I love and helping other people do the same. So today I get to be a wellness coach. I'm an executive leadership coach. I'm the CEO of Dude Nation. I've reclaimed Dude. It was a source of shame for me. Like, I got arrested and lost everything, but now I actually realize, telling my story, I go in depth in these places for anyone who might identify with any part along the way. Um, that reclaiming those things that we were most afraid of. We actually talked about it this morning on the morning rush, like owning your shadows, thanking your shadows, the parts of you that got you here today. And
There's so much in this that needs to be unpacked, like
yeah,
going from fame to failure, complete failure, from the peak of the mountain to the lowest valleys, and then rebounding and actually designing our life. Many of us could actually start to designing our lives right now.
exactly.
Everything that along the way is a choice. And when you chose to go down that path versus stay in school, when you chose to hang out with those people versus, practice your craft and study, every choice that we make, we can look back on, and there's pivotal points. There's those moments that we can pinpoint that shift the trajectory of our life. But I really, the topic of this conversation was, dude, you're getting well. And so what I want to bring us around to is that wellness. When you started Dude Nation, when you started communicating with men and helping them walk that hero's journey. We heard your story. We know why you did it, because you needed it for yourself. And oftentimes our mess becomes our message. And I think that that's true in your case, that mess became your message. And now that message is starting to actually infiltrate. It's getting out there, and more people are hearing about it. And you have retreats popping up. You had a big conference that you did this year. So many things are starting to align. What is your vision for Dude Nation? What do you want to see happen for the men that you're serving in the world today?
It's a beautiful question. And you're such a wonderful listener too, Lisa. I just realized how long my opening was, so thank you. Um, my vision for Dude Nation. So my partner is Adam M. Lamb. He's a chef of 50 years, and he's a beautiful human, and we balance each other really well. And we're building a legacy. It's something that we don't want Dude Nation to be uh, the authority on healthy masculinity. We want to be a space that encourages education and learning and people to come together. That's what we call dude tech, like sitting in a circle. We've been sitting in circle together as humans since the dawn of time, but we've forgotten to just come together and listen and share stories. And actually, in being who we are, we give away our medicine, the beauty that other people need to hear. And so we really are creating as many spaces as we can to wrap around men or anyone who identifies as a dude or is in relationship with a dude, to create spaces and courses and community and support actively that really wraps around men ages 16 to 60 plus. So we really encourage intergenerational relationships. And our future for every man is that um, we really try, and we also nurture, like we don't just give fish, we teach people how to fish, right? So the idea is to nurture community, nurture resilience, nurture emotional intelligence, nurture human flourishing, like doing well in the areas you care about according to you, and having the support you need around you, and rites of passage, educating about rites of passage, like reclaiming who we are and our power as humans.
Yeah. Are there some common challenges that you see men facing today? And how do besides the circle, are there other techniques? I know you're trained in coaching, life coaching, and the Landmark Forum, so many strengths in your wheelhouse, but are there certain common challenges that men face? And what are some of the unique approaches that you guys offer? Because this is a unique platform that you've developed, and I haven't seen anyone done it as well as you guys are, from what I've seen so far, nobody's doing it as well as you are. And so I really
Mm.
want people to take away from this how valuable it is for us to introduce the men in our lives to what you're doing. So common challenges, sorry, that was kind of a rambling question, but what are common challenges you see, and and how do you approach them?
Thank you for that acknowledgement, Lisa. I really appreciate what you said about us too. And we would love to talk to anyone and everyone that would be open to it. The common challenges are men being open to their own self care and support. The very thing we have trained, or society has trained men to do in the past. And this isn't just a men centric issue. It just happens to be put on more on the masculine side of things. Like women have had to deal with this and be this way too now. But the hyper independence, even in the atomic family, like in the US at first, like it was like husband, wife, two kids, two cars, and a dog, right? But that is so insular. We actually cut off from our tribe. So what I really see men dealing with today is loneliness, lack of purpose, because they've been so busy trying to provide for everyone else that they actually don't know what their own needs are or how to ask for what they need. Um, and if they do, they're just really frustrated. Um, and I think those are the two main things, and willingness to actually be support be supported, to trust other men. I find I say being in the business of men is not like, I'm not in the business of money because men are terrified of other men. So it's like I'm here to literally help men learn how to be with each other again. And that's really a journey of learning to love ourselves. Um, how much space have we been given to talk about loving ourselves? How much space have we been given to talk about this together? Why I mentioned 12 steps in my story is because it was so fascinating to me that in 12-step programs, and they still study this today, no one's in charge and they're autonomous. Each group governs itself. Service positions always rotate, and people are having literally life changing, life saving experiences just by being in group. So I said, well, why isn't this available for the rest of the world? Why do you have to be a drug addict or alcoholic or seeking that in order to have that kind of, let's call it technology? around you. And so that's why I started looking for, where are their circles, where are their retreats. Every actually in, I'm so glad I remembered this. Next week, I'm going to be in the birthplace of Bill Wilson, the co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, and where he started to host and save lives in his home in East Dorset, Vermont. I'm going to be on this will be my 11th annual sober men's retreat. And that's where I really got like men who had never cried started crying there. We started talking about death and rites of passage. We started getting better. Men showed up still on drugs or alcohol, and like 3 days later had a sponsor, had meetings, had a community around them, had like more love, had opened up more than they ever had in their entire lives. So that's what I want to give to men now. And remind us that this is natural, that we've been doing this for hundreds of thousands of years. We've just kind of gotten away from it recently. So I think that's the main thing. And also, it was said to me once that by another man who's he's of the Lakota lineage, and his ancestors grew up here and raised this land. And he said, men are beautiful listeners. We just haven't been given the space or ever the chance or even the training again to remember that we're beautiful listeners. I've always been taught that we're not and that women are. And so I didn't actually, I wasn't a great listener because I didn't think I could be. And it took having a coach or mentor or sponsor being like, yeah, you're going to shut up for a little while and just be here.
Yeah, women have outlets. We're built in. We'll go find people to talk to when things are challenging, and that's not necessarily true for men. So many
Mm,
men, as you had mentioned, we kind of stuff it. We just,
mm,
I shouldn't say we because I'm not a man, but I know in the men that have been in my life, I've seen that, I've
mhm,
observed that, and so there's probably people. My audience is predominantly women, and there's probably women who are listening right now who are living with somebody who they know is going through challenges, they know is struggling, but they may not have a resource, an outlet, a place to get some help, and someone who will listen, that it's a safe space and it's a sacred space so that you're held in the highest esteem, the highest regard, and it's okay to be emotional. And that's what's so precious. That's what you're developing and creating. And I did often wonder, I have many people who have gone through the 12-step program in my family, and that is a disease. It does kind of roll forward. And I see what successes those that completed that transition from being an alcoholic to being sober. I've seen what a difference it's made in their lives, and I often wonder, why isn't this available to all of us? Why aren't we taught how to operate these thoughts in this body? And there's a book written, The Owner's Manual, but I don't think it's the same owner's manual as what you're developing and creating through Dude You're Getting Well and through Dude
mm.
Nation. Can you succinctly give us some bullet points? Like, what can men expect to gain by coming into your community, joining your community, and participating?
Great question. They can expect a safe and sacred space. They can expect a community of like-minded men wrapped around them. They can expect to be welcomed with loving and open arms. They can expect to experience true authenticity for the first time, a space for them to really be themselves, to be curious, to challenge us, to be angry, to grieve, to be really well and thrive. We in our so we have a weekly men's call in our dude circle that we hold for our community, no matter who you are or where you are. We also have a weekly group for just single fathers, and then we also have Dude School, which is our 12-week sort of master class in masculinity, where we talk about and teach specific tools in grief, sex and intimacy, self-care, money mindset, where we actually research and look at where we learned about money and how and why, so that we can start to shift that narrative. We have accountability. So you actually have a person who you align with that has your back, that listens for your greatness. And we listen for your greatness, not to you as a victim. And we don't listen to people. This isn't just a cry fest. This is actually a space to share and be supported so that you can move forward in what you care about. So we really have an active community. We encourage integrity and authenticity and vulnerability and fun. So
Yeah.
we also have a sense of humor. That's why it was challenging for me to name my company the Dude Nation, because it's so forward. It's like, if you're saying dude, you're already a little silly, or maybe, whatever people have about it. Some people, and for me, it's a great conversation piece that we get to say, well, what does dude mean to you? And we yell dude at the end of our meetings. Just at one first, it's important to practice raising our voice and putting ourselves out there and taking up space, and also to take ourselves less seriously. And I believe humor is a beautiful healing tool.
Very much so.
Yeah.
It's such a clever nod to your past. How do you use that personal persona to actually put this out there? Are you promoting this through television, other types of resources? How are you using that public persona that you owned? You have it. It's you.
Mhm.
You're the only dude. You're the only Dell guy. When people think of the Dell guy, it's you, Ben Curtis.
Yeah.
How do you use that as a platform to advocate for men's wellness? Are there some other events or things that you're doing to advocate for men's wellness using that kind of nod to your past?
That's a great question. I've been looking at how to do that more. Just out of being myself, Dell brought me back 3 years ago. You can look up the Dell campaign. They put me in a McLaren, they put me in space, and they put me in one other really cool thing. And then we talked about the future of technology and how much can change in 20 years. And so it was literally the 20-year anniversary for my commercials. So that was a great way. I
Yeah.
don't as an actor producer, it can be kind of tricky to go create your a film or TV production. However, you right here, Lisa, are showing us that you can do it like right from your home today. So whatever, as I was saying that, I was like, wait, that's not true. We're on TV right now.
Yeah.
So this is one of the platforms. My podcast is called Dude, You're Getting Well. And we're in our third season now. So that's been a great way to put the voice forward and just being myself. It kind of works for itself. I'm always putting myself out there as a speaker as well. And then we host the Dude Conference, Dude Con, every year. It's a global now virtual conference for healthy masculinity, and we look at all aspects from the most masculine of masculine to the most feminine of feminine and everything in between, and how to learn from each other. We also are hosting the Dude Deep Dive, which is a 5-day men's retreat where we dive deep into what it means to be a man in today's world. And that's for men ages 20 to 70. And it's at the world famous Omega Institute for Healing in Rhinebeck, New York. And that's going to be June 2nd to the 7th. And so if you type in Dude Deep Dive Omega, or you can look up, the dudenation.com. It's all on there. And we would love to have any of you men in person, because there's nothing as profound as being with another human being. And your energy really takes care of it. The beautiful thing is you get to just be you, and the work takes care of itself. I, uh, Showing up is half the battle, or maybe even 90% of it.
Yeah.
And so I think it's about practice learning to show up for ourselves, and giving ourselves permission to do that. I mean, and we have coaching. I do one-on-one coaching and group coaching. So all of those are places where you can jump in, but our retreats are seasonal. So you can come here in person with us. We're also going to be doing them in Costa Rica soon as well. So there's a lot of experiences and places to where we connect with
Plug
men.
in. Mhm. For someone listening who might be struggling, that's a lot. It's kind of an overwhelming amount. Is there one place, first step towards improvement that, what could that first step be for somebody?
That's a great question. I think the first step is just sharing, finding someone you trust and being honest with them. I think that's a great first step.
Open up and have the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another one can say, how are you? Just ask them how they're doing. And most people are, not always willing to talk about themselves. So inevitably they'll probably ask how you're doing. And you're the challenge is to just be honest. And that's the great first step. I would say a second step is you can schedule a call with me, or just come check out a dude circle. one week and learned that it's pretty safe and it's pretty amazing.
How do folks check out a dude circle or connect with you?
They go to thedudenation.com and
Okay.
there's a link to schedule a call or join our circle.
Easy. Couldn't be
Yeah.
more simple. Yeah. So we want to invite everybody out there who's listened, who's heard Ben's story, because really truly, to go from getting started to the top of the mountain to falling off the mountain to actually rebounding and creating the life that he wants with his wife and his dog, who he absolutely loves and adores. We didn't even talk about that. Just it's all of us go through those struggles. All of us go through those trials throughout our
Yeah.
lives. And we just sometimes we feel alone and we don't know that there's resources, and there are resources, and that's
Yeah.
why we wanted to bring this to all of you, that
Mm.
you ladies who are watching, my audience who is predominantly ladies, if you know of men who are in this place and in this space, please connect them to Ben. I think it's really important. A
Mm.
rising tide raises all boats, and right now we want to raise both men and women. We're on a women's network, but all of us women are connected to men in some way, and so we want to make sure that they get invited into the circle, they get invited into the conversation, and they're
Mm.
included in the hero's journey that all of us walk. But they don't have to walk it alone. They have support these days.
Yes. Can I have one more thing to
Yeah,
add? A
please come
message
on.
for
We
the
have just a
women.
couple more minutes. Yeah.
Okay, great. I really want to say I know there's so many women out there who would love for your partner or a man in your life to have this experience, to like have that support, to have the experience of thriving. It is really important that they're willing. Same thing with addiction. We can't make someone get better if they're not willing, but we can continue to lay the tools at their feet. So, we can't make a horse drink water, but we can lead them to it. So I want to remind you, these are things that it may take men time to warm up to. Introduce them to the podcast, show them a video of me. If they're over 35, they probably know who I am. If they're under 30, they may not. Uh, so but my partner's in his 60s too. We're powerful men, and we've got a lot of experience. Our testimonials speak for it. Showing them a testimonial of what other men who maybe look like them or don't have gotten is helpful. And the other thing is just to be patient and be the change you want to see, like be the inviting space you'd like them to be. Because sometimes it's just holding the space again and again until it starts to feel warm. You put a new fish in water or a dog in a new home, and it takes a little while to adjust, but over time they realize it's safe and they start to open up more. So one of the practices my wife and I have implemented is every other week we have couples counseling. Every week on Monday we talk about our week together, our schedule together. Every Wednesday, if we don't have couples counseling for 1 hour, we talk about how our relationship is really doing from each of our perspectives. Every Thursday we play music together for an hour because we have a band. And every Friday or Saturday we go on a date together, and we don't talk about any business or music or anything. We just try to fall in love and have fun. That's a practice we've had to actively put in over time. But even if you just chose one of those to suggest to your partner, they'd probably love a space to check in and really have their needs heard too. So that's something I'd want to invite you into is a great first step.
Beautiful. All right, lots of the stuff to unpack in this conversation. Please go back, listen again. There's so many resources and ways to support the men in our lives, and I'm so glad you all were here with us. If you need a little bit of advice on expanding or starting your business with simple solutions, I'd love to have a conversation with you about what you're doing and how we can support you on social media and expanding your brand. Just go to lisamosbey.com and click on book time, and we'll set up a 30-minute session with you to talk about that. Otherwise, we're going to have some conversations, the show after the show, open up for questions with our audience. We hope to see you live on the podcast sometime in the future. We're here every Tuesday, so feel free to come on back, join us live, and an exchange conversation with my expert guests. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. Bye-bye.